Hi guys, today we are going to be doing a brake bleed on Shimano brakes on my Polygon Siskiyou T7. Let's start with the tools. Alright, for this project you're going to need a decent amount of tools. We'll start on the left. Probably going to want some nitrile gloves. Mineral oil is nasty and definitely don't want to get it on your brake rotors or pads. I'm using an adjustable spanner today. It's a 7mm wrench basically is what the use is. 4mm, 2.5mm wrench, syringe, a pipe, some brake oil, some isopropyl alcohol, somewhere to put some stuff, bleed block, an Allen wrench to get your wheel off, and then another rag for dirty parts. And that's it for tools. Alright, let's start with setting up the rear of the bike. First off, we're going to want to get the wheel off. For that, I will be using my torque wrench. Now we've got the wheel off, next is the pads. Start by removing this little clip here. It's really important, that clip. Do not lose that. I'll put it in my little parts thing over here. It's magnetic. Now we're going to get our 3mm wrench and we're going to pull the pads out. Once you get that little screw out, the pads should come free. You should be able to just grab them. We're going to set those carefully in here. Do not let those get any oil on them, they will get contaminated. So now we should have a brake. I'm going to clean mine real quick. Make sure when you're cleaning your brakes that you use a clean rag with either brake cleaner or alcohol. You do not want to get these contaminated. They will not work very well. So I don't know if you can tell, but those pistons, because they're out, we're going to have to push them back in order to get the bleed block in. We're going to use like a tire lever or something to do that. All right, so now we're going to push the pistons back in with a tire lever. Once the pistons have been pushed back in, it is time to put in the bleed block. Grab your bleed block, and then you put it in from the underside. Boom, just like that. Now we're going to set up the front. For this, you're going to need 4mm wrench, 2.5mm wrench, and a bleed funnel. All right, so first we're going to set our bike at an angle so that the caliper is lower than the brake lever, because that'll make all the air bubbles rise up. So for this, we're going to have to move the bike down. So now it's at a slant facing up. So now we're going to have to reposition the lever so that it's at 90 degrees from the ground. There we go. Once it's at 90 degrees from the ground, tighten it. And we're ready for the next step. Now you're going to grab your 2.5mm Allen wrench and undo the bleed screw. So the bleed screw is this little bitty screw from the top. Carefully undo it. It's really hard to see, but on the bleed screw there's a little O-ring. So that O-ring has to go back in the thing. Let's go back in the reservoir. So now the O-ring is back in the reservoir. It's hard to see, but it's in there. Now grab your bleed funnel. Very carefully press down and screw it in. So now you got that in there. Leave that little stopper in there, you're gonna want it. All right, so next you're gonna get your mineral oil. Carefully fill it about 3/4 of the way, right about there. Now we're gonna come over here. We've got our syringe, we've got our pipe, and we've got our mineral oil. All right, so now we want to fill our syringe with mineral oil to about 15 milliliters. So we're going to put the pipe onto the syringe, put the pipe on the syringe. It's going to go in the mineral oil, and you're going to pull out 15 milliliters. So now your syringe should have about 15 milliliters of oil in it, and what you're going to do is you're going to tip it upright so that all the air bubbles float up. You're going to push it down carefully and make sure all the air gets out before you put it on. Very carefully push all the air out. All right, so now we're ready to move to the back. So there's a little bitty bleed ports thing. Put that in a safe location. Now we're going to carefully put this guy on the bleed port. There we go. So that should be attached. So that's attached. Get your 7mm wrench. All right, so what you're gonna do is you're gonna use your wrench to loosen the bleed port. So go left 1/4 of a turn, and what that will do is it will start the flow of oil. All right, so now we're back up at the front. We gotta pull our little bleed ports thingy out of here. Set that in a safe location. And we're ready to start. So let's come back to the back. You wanna hold this up. You're gonna carefully push this through. Don't push it all through. Just push part of it through. And then stop. And then pause. Okay, so once you've done it enough times and you're happy with it, what you're gonna do is you're gonna put your wrench back on. And tighten that nut. That will stop the flow. So then you're good to go. You're gonna carefully pull this guy off. Might spurt a little bit. Put that on somewhere clean. And we're good for that. Now we gotta do the front. Now we're gonna go to the front. We're gonna pump the brake lever a few times. Make sure there's no oil in there. And then what we're gonna do is we're gonna get our 4mm Allen wrench. We're gonna tip it forwards a little bit. Then we're gonna pump it. Make sure the brake's good to go. Then we're gonna do the same thing and we're gonna go backwards. We're gonna pump it. Make sure all the bubbles are out. And then we're gonna return it to its original position. So now all the air should be out of the system. Now what we're gonna do is we're gonna grab our little plunger, put it in here. Once it's in there, you can carefully unthread this. And we're gonna put it over here is what I like to do. I like to put it on top of mine. And I actually like to pull the plunger out carefully. And I like to let it drain back in here if it's clean oil. If it's not, then obviously you don't want to put clean oil and bad oil together. All right, now we're gonna put the bleed screw back in. So get your 2.5 millimeter wrench. Put the screw in. Get your oil wrench. And just tighten the screw. All right, we're gonna put that little bleed port cover back on. We're gonna put the bike back in a normal position and take out the bleed block. And then put the brake pads back in. All right, so now it's time to put the brake pads back in. I'm gonna carefully insert them. Once your brake pads are in, you can get your brake pad screw. Put it through there. Through your little 3 millimeter wrench. We're gonna tighten it. So it's tight, get your little safety clip. Put it back on. Brake's good to go. Now we just gotta put in the wheel. All right, once your wheel's back on, brake lever's back how it should be, then we just gotta clean up our syringe. Take a syringe, we're gonna put it back into this guy. And that'll drain back. All right, so the last step is to clean everything. Mineral oil is not good, so we're gonna clean it up with some alcohol and get rid of all that. Put some, and then we're just gonna rub that all over the brake. Make sure everything's clean. Once it's all clean, you're good to go. Make sure you pump your brake a few times because it will have to reset the pads. So it might feel weird at first, but you just gotta pump it a few times. Then we're gonna do the same thing to the caliper in the back. And it's good to go. Thanks for watching, everyone. Please subscribe.